The Tower of Babel, a deep dive into unity, pride, and divine intervention. Have you ever wondered how the world's languages came to be? How did humanity, once united by a single tongue, become so diverse in its ways of communicating? Could it be that this linguistic diversity was more than just a natural evolution, but rather a direct consequence of human pride and ambition? The story of the Tower of Babel offers us not only an explanation for the multiplicity of languages, but also a profound lesson on the dangers of arrogance and the importance of humility in the face of divine authority. Before we delve into the deeper meanings and hidden truths behind the Tower of Babel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more explorations into the mysteries of the Bible. Now, let's journey together into this ancient tale, unpacking its layers of meaning and understanding what it truly teaches us about human nature and God's will. The story of the Tower of Babel. The story of the Tower of Babel is one of the most famous and enigmatic tales in the Bible, found in Genesis 11, 1-9. It takes place in the generations following the Great Flood, an event that had wiped out much of the Earth's population. Noah and his descendants were tasked with repopulating and stewarding the Earth. At this time, the entire world spoke a single language, and humanity was united both in speech and in purpose. As the population grew, a group of people migrated eastward and settled in a land called Shinar, which is often identified as the region of Mesopotamia. In this fertile plain, the people decided to build a city, and within that city, a tower that would reach the heavens. The motivation behind this grand architectural project was twofold. They wanted to make a name for themselves and prevent their community from being scattered across the earth. The Bible tells us that the people of Shinar began to make bricks and bake them thoroughly, using brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. This detail about the materials is significant. It highlights their intent to build something that would last, a monument to their collective human achievement. Their ambition was not merely to construct a tall building, it was to create a structure that would symbolize their unity and their independence from God. However, their plans did not go unnoticed by God. The Bible says that God came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. He observed that they were one people with one language, and he recognized that nothing they planned to do would be impossible for them. This statement is often misunderstood as an acknowledgement of human potential, but in reality, it was a recognition of the dangerous path humanity was on, a path of pride and rebellion that could lead them further away from God. In response, God decided to confuse their language, so they would not understand each other. This divine intervention abruptly halted their construction project, and the people were scattered over the face of the earth. The once unified community was now divided by language and geography, and the tower, which had been intended as a symbol of their greatness, was left unfinished. The place where this event occurred was named Babel, which in Hebrew means confusion, and it became a lasting reminder of the consequences of human arrogance. Misconceptions about the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel is often remembered as the story of how different languages came into existence. While this is certainly a key element, to reduce the story to merely an explanation for linguistic diversity is to miss its deeper and more profound lessons. One common misconception is that the tower itself was the primary issue. Some believe that God was displeased solely because humans were building a tall structure that aimed to reach the heavens. However, the height of the tower was not the core problem. It was the intention behind the construction that was problematic. The people of Babel were not building a tower to honor God or to draw closer to Him. Instead, they sought to elevate themselves to create a monument to their own glory and to assert their independence from divine authority. This leads to another misconception, the idea that God's intervention was an act of wrath or jealousy. Some might interpret God's decision to confuse the languages as a punitive measure. a way to crush human ambition and keep mankind in check. But this perspective overlooks the nuance of the narrative. God's actions at Babel were not driven by a desire to punish, but by a concern for humanity's well-being. The unity that the people of Babel displayed was not a righteous unity. It was a unity rooted in pride and rebellion. God's intervention was a merciful act to prevent them from pursuing a path that would ultimately lead to greater harm. Moreover, some interpret the scattering of the people as a curse, a form of divine retribution. However, this scattering was actually a fulfillment of God's original command to humanity to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Genesis 1:28. The people of Babel had resisted this command by trying to remain in one place and build a city that would keep them together. In scattering them, God was ensuring that His will for the earth would be carried out. Exploring the hidden meanings. The Tower of Babel is a story rich with symbolism and hidden meanings that offer valuable insights into human nature and our relationship with God. One of the most significant aspects of the story is its commentary on human pride. The people of Babel were not content with the gifts and the purpose that God had given them. They wanted to elevate themselves, to create something that would make them gods in their own eyes. This pride led them to defy God's command and to believe that they could achieve greatness on their own terms. In many ways, the Tower of Babel is a mirror of the original sin in the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve sought knowledge and power apart from God. The use of bricks and tar in the construction of the tower also carries symbolic weight. In the ancient world, bricks were often associated with human effort and ingenuity, as opposed to stone, which was seen as a natural material provided by God. By choosing to build with bricks, the people of Babel were asserting their independence from the natural order and from God's provision. The tar, which was used as mortar, was a substance that could withstand water, possibly alluding to their desire to create something that even a divine flood could not destroy. Another hidden meaning in the story is the concept of unity. The people of Babel were united in their language and their purpose, but their unity was built on a foundation of pride and defiance. The story suggests that unity, in and of itself, is not inherently good or bad. It depends on the purpose behind it. When people come together to pursue God's will, unity can be a powerful force for good. But when unity is directed toward self-glorification and rebellion, it becomes dangerous. God's decision to confuse their language and scatter them was a way of preventing this misguided unity from leading to even greater sin. The scattering of the people also has a deeper theological significance. It marks the beginning of the diversity of nations and cultures, which would eventually lead to the formation of Israel, God's chosen people. This diversity was part of God's plan to populate the earth and to create a world in which different cultures and languages could exist, each reflecting different aspects of God's creativity and sovereignty. Lessons from the Tower of Babel. The story of the Tower of Babel offers several important lessons that are as relevant today as they were in ancient times. 1. The danger of pride. The first and most obvious lesson is the danger of pride. The people of Babel believed that they could achieve greatness on their own, without God. This pride led them to defy God's command and to attempt to create a name for themselves apart from Him. The story reminds us that pride is a destructive force that can lead us away from God and towards our own ruin. True greatness is not something we can achieve on our own. It is a gift from God, and it can only be realized when we are in alignment with His will. 2. The importance of humility. Closely related to the lesson on pride is the importance of humility. The people of Babel lacked humility, which led them to believe that they could challenge God's authority. The story teaches us that humility is essential for a healthy relationship with God. It is only when we recognize our dependence on Him and submit to His will that we can truly fulfill our purpose. 3. The power of unity and its dangers. The Tower of Babel also teaches us about the power of unity. The people of Babel were able to accomplish much because they were united in their purpose. However, their unity was based on a sinful desire to elevate themselves above God. This shows us that unity can be a powerful force, but it must be directed towards righteous purposes. When unity is based on pride and rebellion, it becomes dangerous and destructive. God's sovereignty and mercy. Finally, the story of the Tower of Babel reminds us of God's sovereignty and mercy. God's intervention at Babel was not an act of wrath, but an act of mercy. He intervened to prevent humanity from pursuing a path that would lead to greater sin and destruction. The scattering of the people was also a way of fulfilling God's original command to fill the earth. This shows us that God's plans will always prevail, and His actions are always guided by His love and mercy. The Tower of Babel is much more than a story about the origin of languages. It is a powerful narrative that teaches us about the dangers of pride, the importance of humility, and the need for unity that is rooted in righteousness. It also reminds us of God's sovereignty and mercy, and the lengths He will go to guide humanity back to the right path. As you reflect on this story, consider how these lessons apply to your own life. Are there areas where pride has led you away from God? How